Hello everyone, this is part 5 of What If Naruto Awakened New Skills, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. The next 2 days were spent with Naruto and Hinata practicing the jutsu and Jiraiya watching Tsunade gamble whilst discussing a plan for taking on Orochimaru. Third day, early morning, Jiraiya's hotel room. Hey Ero-Sennin, how exactly are we supposed to master it at all if we haven't even seen the final form? Whined Naruto. True, I suppose I should really show you the completed form in action at least once. Okay, meet me at the woods outside of town in 1 hour, said Jiraiya. Alright, see you there, replied Naruto running back to his and Hinata's room. Arriving at his and Hinata's room, Naruto opened the door and was met with quite the sight. Hinata had just come back into the main room after taking a shower, as both she and Naruto had expected it to take a while for him to convince Jiraiya to show them the jutsu. She was standing beside her bed wearing only a towel. It started just above her B and finished just below her X. The sight instantly caused Naruto to turn crimson, get a nosebleed and promptly pass out in the space of a split second. Hinata turned crimson, but managed to stay composed enough to quickly get dried and dressed before she checked to see if Naruto was alright. Her first thought had been to quickly run over and check if he was alright, but in all likelihood, she realized, that would have most likely caused the towel to fall off and would probably mean she would wake Naruto for him to get a good view of her birthday suit, which she wasn't quite ready for. Around 10 minutes later, Hinata finally managed to wake Naruto. It took a further 5 minutes to stop his nosebleed due to the image still being fresh in his mind. Then he remembered why he'd come back to the room. Oh yeah, Hinata, Ero-Sennin said to meet him in the woods outside of town and he'll show us the jutsu. He said to meet him there in an hour, but since I no longer have any idea how much time has passed, I think we best go there now. We can practice as easily there as we can here, said Naruto. Okay Naruto, said Hinata. They then left the room and headed for the woods. 40 minutes later, the woods outside the town. Hey Ero-Sennin, hurry up and show us this technique, said Naruto as Jiraiya came into view. Alright already, I'm coming, said Jiraiya. Took your time, said Naruto. Yeah well, now then, the technique is very powerful and quite complex, so listen carefully. It is created by spinning your chakra very quickly in a number of directions at the same time, but the most important part of it is that in order to gain its full potential you must be able to keep it in a small space and pack it with chakra. By making the chakra as compressed as possible, it allows the final technique to plow through something without losing its shape or its power. Watch, said Jiraiya. He quickly prepared a ball of spinning chakra in his right hand, but it seemed as though quite a lot of chakra was escaping. He then pushed it into the side of a tree. It created a small indentation in the tree and a swirl of damaged bark around it. That's what happens when you use the Rasengan at the level you two are up to at the moment. This, however, is what the full version does, continued Jiraiya. This time forming another ball of chakra, but this one was much denser. The chakra was spinning in more directions and it lost hardly any chakra. Naruto and Hinata both quickly activated their Byakugan and watched carefully as Jiraiya thrust his arm forward into the same part of the tree, but this time instead of quickly dissipating and doing only superficial damage to the tree, it dug into the tree, into it and easily through it before Jiraiya made it dissipate. I trust you see the difference. Now then, if you practice the technique with these you'll be able to get it to full strength, said Jiraiya, handing each of them 2 bags of balloons. Huh, why do we need these, Ero-Sennin? Asked Naruto, rather confused. Stop calling me that, shouted Jiraiya. Anyway, you need to create the Rasengan as you have with the water balloon and the rubber ball, but this time instead of trying to pop it you're trying to make it as powerful as possible without the balloon popping, he explained. Okay then, this should be easy, said Naruto. And when are you going to take these seals off, Ero-Sennin? You said you'd take them off if we could get to the second stage within 2 days, and instead we completed the second stage in 2 days and you've still left them on. whined Naruto. Jiraiya sighed. He was going to have to let that one slide completely, as he had completely forgotten about the seals, and with Orochimaru coming back for an answer in just 3 days, they were going to need him taking them off sooner rather than later to allow the two to adapt to their new chakra levels, as well as taking the weights and vests off the day before, otherwise they'd have no chakra to fight with. Alright, lift up your shirt, Sagarin, said Jiraiya, preparing the counter seal on each hand. He then repeated the same procedure as he had with Naruto the first time and removed the seals, also sending both kids back 5 feet into a set of bushes. Damn it, Ero Sennin, isn't there a better way to take him off? Asked Naruto as he dragged himself out of the bush he landed in. He then walked over to where Hinata had landed and helped her get out. Jiraiya sighed. No, I'm afraid there isn't. Now then, I suggest you hurry up and get practicing, as you only have 2 days left to master it if you intend to win the bet, said Jiraiya as he turned and walked away. Naruto and Hinata again started practicing the Rasengan, but found that they were in fact much further ahead than they thought they were. With the removal of the seals, their chakra molded easily and formed with much more power than it had been, but they still felt the drain of the weights and vests. But with newfound chakra and determination, they got to work on mastering the technique. The next morning, Naruto in Hinata's hotel room. A knock on the door woke Hinata from what could only be described as a light slumber that's just trying to delay getting out of bed. She had slept very well, and with having gotten a full night's rest had initially awoken around 20 minutes ago, but unwilling to leave the comforts of the blankets, she had instead drifted lightly in and out of sleep. Annoyed, she slowly dragged herself out of bed and walked to the door and opened it, to find Jiraiya on the other side. Good morning, Hinata, said the Sannin with a warm smile on his face. Good morning, Ero Sennin, replied Hinata. Jiraiya decided that due to events past, that will not be detailed as they have no relevance to the story, she would be allowed to call him that, even if he was going to continually try and persuade Naruto to stop calling him that. I have information for you. From today until I say otherwise, both you and Naruto will not wear the vests, but I'm going to increase the weight you're carrying. In an emergency, and only an emergency, you may remove the weights. In 2 hours you and Naruto are to meet myself, Tsunade, and Shizune at the restaurant 2 doors down from here. There we will go over the plan that me and Tsunade have devised to take on Orochimaru, said Jiraiya. Okay, but shouldn't I wake Naruto for you to tell him that too? Asked Hinata. No, I want you to sort yourself out first, then wake him up. Whilst I will admit to enjoying my life, I will also admit that it is not the best road to take, and, wherever possible, I'd like to make sure that such temptations aren't there for him to experience, particularly now that he has you. It would be a mistake he would regret for a lifetime if he did something like that and it caused you to leave, replied the Sannin. This surprised Hinata, and she thought she heard some regret in his voice. You sound like you speak from experience, Jiraiya-sensei, she said. Yes, unfortunately I do. I've only had one opportunity, and if it hadn't been for my antics I probably wouldn't have made such a mess of it, but that's in the past now. Sort yourself out and pass on the message. I'll increase the weight now and I'll see you in 2 hours, said Jiraiya, making 3 hand seals. Hinata instantly felt the extra weight on her limbs. Thank you, Jiraiya-sensei. See you in 2 hours, replied Hinata, closing the door as the Sannin walked away. Hinata then did as Jiraiya instructed and removed her chakra-draining vest, the weights slowing her down slightly as she still needed to get used to them. Naruto, still blissfully ignorant of the weight increase away in Sleepyland, she then sorted herself out, taking a shower and getting dressed in around half an hour, and then woke Naruto up. She then informed him of what Jiraiya had said, leaving nothing out. Naruto taking great note regarding the avoidance of Jiraiya's own mistake and silently vowing to ensure he did not make that same mistake with Hinata, she then left to go and walk around for a while to get used to the new weight she was having to carry. Whilst she was a relatively skilled ninja, she lacked the physical strength to excel in taijutsu, which was fortunate as the gentle fist style of the Hyuga clan did not require great physical strength. Naruto sorted himself out and they met 45 minutes before they were due to meet Jiraiya, Tsunade and Shizune at the hotel restaurant to have breakfast. Konoha, on top of the Hokage monument. A cloaked figure slowly emerged from the same tunnel as Naruto had just a few days prior. They stood around 6 feet tall, but the true stature, whilst not massive, was well hidden by the black cloak that shrouded them. The back of the cloak bore the Konoha insignia in white, and the only other visible thing were the black ninja sandals they wore. The figure walked to the top of the Hokage monument and looked over the village. It's good to be home, said a light adult male voice to no one in particular. At the restaurant, Naruto and Hinata walked through the door and seeing Tsunade, Jiraiya and Shizune they walked over to the table and sat down. The mood at the table was somber to say the least. If the tension had been anything, you would have needed a chainsaw to see through it. The sharp knives had already gone blunt. Alright, so what's the plan? Asked Naruto as he sat down, looking from one Sannin to the other and back again. The plan is simple enough. Can you summon Gamakichi for me please Naruto? Replied Jiraiya. Okay, but I won't just summon him, said Naruto quickly going trough the hand seals of the summoning jutsu and then repeating them. Twin summoning, he said both hands onto the table, as the smoke cleared two small animals could be seen in front of him. Hey, Naruto, said Gamakichi. Hey, Naruto, Hinata. Cried out Bayako dashing into Hinata's waiting arms. Tsunade and Shizune were speechless. As far as they knew no one could summon foxes. Yes, I have the summoning contract for foxes. It seems to have been a side effect from signing the toad summoning contract. All I can think is that the Cubus influence extends into my bee and in signing the contract I also created one for foxes. Hinata can summon them as well. I decided to see what happened if I acted as though I was creating a summoning contract with the animal using my bee instead after accidentally summoning the first one, Naruto said shrugging, but fortunately Tsunade, Jiraiya and Shizune bought it. Hinata on the other hand, could tell it was a lie and decided to get the truth from him later. Well, regardless of the fact, Gamakichi, you have a younger brother, don't you? Asked Jiraiya. Sure Jiraiya, why do you ask? Asked the toad, very curious. Well, the plan is that tonight Tsunade is going to give me a drug to disrupt my chakra control. So chances are I'll only be able to summon either you or your brother Gamatetsu. There is an anti-drug but it needs 30 minutes to work. So the plan is to keep them guessing. We know the time we need and what to do. So I'll summon you, then Naruto will summon Gamatetsu and Hinata will summon Bayako here. Shizune hasn't signed a summoning contract and so has no companion to summon. We know Tsunade is over her fear of B, but we plan on making them think she isn't. We'll lure them deeper and deeper into a sense of false security so that when the time is right we can strike hard and fast and hopefully take them out for good. Although I doubt it. When the time is right I'll summon your father Gamabunta. Naruto, I'm guessing you have a large fox summon. Asked Jiraiya. Yeah, Arasu, he's about as powerful as Hachimogi, the eight-tailed chameleon demon, replied Naruto smiling. Good, cause you'll be summoning him, and Tsunade will summon Katsuyu, the slug queen. We need to wait till he summons Manda though, otherwise we won't have a good shot and any advantage we had will disappear. Hinata, Shizune, I think that Orochimaru's subordinate, whoever he is, will be there too. We need you two to keep him occupied so that we can get our best shot at Orochimaru. Right, said Shizune. Okay, said Hinata. You can do it Hinata, said Naruto smiling. Hinata blushed lightly but as always was filled with confidence and a determination to put everything she had into the task presented to her. Alright then, tomorrow morning Tsunade will go and meet Orochimaru as planned. We'll follow behind and join the battle as soon as we can. Remember to be ready to deviate from the plan and improvise if things start to go differently. Make your decisions and stick with them. There is no time for second guessing. Trust your instincts and hopefully you won't go far wrong, said Jiraiya. Then Naruto and Hinata got up and left, whilst Jiraiya, Tsunade and Shizune sat and talked over various things whilst they had a meal. Gamakichi and Bayako followed Hinata and Naruto. Naruto and Hinata had decided to head to the forest just outside the town and continue their training. They certainly seem to be getting better. It's taking longer for the balloons to pop with each try, said Gamakichi. Yeah, but I think they may still be a way away from getting it right, replied Bayako as the two creatures sat on the edge of the clearing they were in and watched the two genin practice. Hinata seemed to be able to hold it for a little longer than Naruto but couldn't put as much power into it. Naruto was putting so much power in on one occasion he had knocked himself back 3 feet and taken the top off a nearby bush. Fortunately Hinata had been standing in line with him around 6 feet behind him so she hadn't been hurt. For a further half an hour the two little creatures watched the genin practice. They heard another 2 pops as the balloons burst, then as expected about a minute later they heard a pop but no second pop. They waited another minute then looked at the 2 kids. Hinata was holding a balloon in her hand. It was obvious there was chakra spinning in it because of the movements it made but it didn't pop. She held it like that for about 5 minutes before letting the chakra dissipate, still without popping the balloon. Awesome Hinata, you've done it and inside 5 days too, said Naruto ecstatic at Hinata's success. Hinata however wasn't entirely as pleased as he was. Why yes, but I still can't get it anywhere near as powerful as you can Naruto, she said with a slight blush on her cheeks and looking at the floor. Don't worry about that Hinata, I've got a much higher chakra store than anyone else in our teams. Including the sensei, I can afford to use the extra chakra to make it more powerful because even afterwards I've still got more left than most would start with. You saw how little I used compared to Sasuke and the technique I used was more powerful than the one he was using. Anyway, I think it's time I taught you a technique of mine. It will help you in future both in battle and in training. It's the Shadow Clone Jutsu. Everything your clones learn is passed back to you when they are dispersed or destroyed, said Naruto. He then spent the next hour and a half teaching the jutsu to Hinata whilst 4 of his own clones practiced the Rasengan. An hour and a half later. Hey Naruto, look, that clone of yours has managed it, said Gamakichi, pointing his leg and foot at a clone holding a stable Rasengan. Naruto first looked at him and then at the clone he was pointing at. All right, I think that'll do for today then, said Naruto getting up. He then dispersed the clones and felt a little dizzy from the rush of knowledge he gained. He then helped Hinata up and got a very solemn look on his face. He appeared to be deep in thought. Keeping hold of her hand they walked hand in hand back to the hotel, followed by Bayako and Gamakichi, Hinata sporting a light blush on her cheeks, a far cry from what her reaction would have been a week ago, to instantly pass out on contact. Do you remember the technique I used on a number of sound ninja when you were going to face Orochimaru last time? Asked the voice. Yes, why? Asked Naruto. If you remember I said I would teach you the technique but with everything that happened I completely forgot. But whilst you were doing your training I did some thinking and decided that I'd just gift you the technique since you worked so hard to master this one. I think you've earned it. I'll implant the knowledge now, said the voice. Naruto immediately felt the knowledge of how to perform the technique which he also learned was called the Hikari Yaiba Byu Jutsu. Later that night, the hotel room. Hey Hinata, you want something to eat? I'm gonna order a takeaway from down the road, asked Naruto. Hinata was getting a shower so he had to raise his voice slightly for her to be able to hear him. Please Naruto, I'll have the same as you, replied Hinata. They dismissed the toad and the fox when they got back to the hotel and after a couple of hours of talking both on their way back from the area they'd trained in and in the hotel room Hinata had finally managed to stop stuttering even when Naruto complimented her or she was a little nervous about a situation or question, at least when she was talking to Naruto anyway. Naruto went into his bag and pulled out a menu he'd picked up on their way back to the hotel and quickly scanned through it. Finding several dishes of interest he decided he would order them. Also picked up the receiver on the phone and dialed the number on the back of the menu. When the phone was answered he ordered what he had selected off the menu and told them where to deliver it, then he hung up and waited for it to be delivered. 20 minutes later there was a knock at the door. Naruto opened it to find the delivery man at the door. He took the food then pulled out his wallet and paid the man and started to close the door with his foot. Suddenly he had the arm that was at the open part of the door up. The delivery man staggered backward from his fist and out the door. That was stupid. I'm a shinobi. Traveling that slow you might as well not have bothered, said Naruto. The food now neatly placed on the table at the other end of the room. The man's eyes widened in shock. He had watched the boy and he hadn't seen him move. The boy had seen him move and blocked it but he hadn't even seen a flicker when the boy put the food on the table. Then he noticed the 3 black S on each of the boy's cheeks. He remembered hearing 2 ninjas talking in the restaurant one time. They had worked for Zabuza Momoki, the demon of the mist. They had spoken about a boy with whisker marks who had been unbelievably powerful, even so much as to cause Zabuza himself trouble. He also remembered them saying he was a pupil of Kakashi Hatake, the copy ninja, the son of Konoha's White Fang, as well as overhearing Konoha shinobi saying that the team he had must have been quite skilled as it was the first team he'd ever passed and trained anyone. Slowly the man got to his feet, then something else came to mind. Everyone knew that Konoha had done battle with the 9-tailed fox but some had also said that they created a jinchuriki. One that wasn't treated as a weapon like the others but was a ninja by their own choice and had gained the respect of many of the Konoha ninja. From pieces of information he gained over time he learned that all jinchuriki had something that marked a resemblance to the demon sealed within. It was then that the lines on his cheeks made sense. They didn't just look like whisker marks, they were whisker marks to denote the demon sealed within him. I'm very sorry, I'll be going now, he said, bowing low. Fear apparent in his voice. After that encounter he quit his job and changed career, instead deciding that working in a tea house would be much safer. Naruto then closed the door on the blur that had been the man and went back into the room, dispelling the clone he'd made in the process. It had been practicing chakra control when the guy called, and whilst he had his eyes closed from the fist in the face, it had quickly put the food on the table. He went and sorted out the food, laying it out on the table so that when Hinata came out they would be able to start eating right away. 15 minutes later Hinata came out of the bathroom dressed in some of her new clothes. She wore a red t-shirt that see off at the top of her stomach with a skeleton with a mohawk holding a kunai in each hand printed on it in black and the words, "When death comes knocking, just kick him in the nuts" written on the back. Her pants wear dark blue tight-fitting shorts that see off just above the knee. The influence Naruto had on her confidence was obvious. Her clothes were a far cry from what she once would have worn, and most would never have ever thought that she would wear the clothes she had on. "What did you order, Naruto?" she asked, walking towards him. He turned to look at her and smiled at the clothes she had on. He had wondered what Hashi would think when he saw most of her clothes, but he wasn't too concerned. Hinata's confidence boost had done more than just change her choice in clothing. Her skills had improved greatly, as now she was less bothered about getting it perfect and more bothered about just doing roughly right. Naruto wasn't the best judge, but as far as he could tell her forms were nearly flawless. She had also started to develop something similar to Neji's 8 trigrams, heavenly spin, and adding her new skill into the equation she was a force to be reckoned with, even for most experienced chunin. "I got a selection since they only had foreign food. I thought it best so that we could pick and choose. I also figured that there had to be at least something that we'd like. That's duck in plum sauce, that's fish and chips, that's a pizza with tomatoes, mozzarella cheese, ham and pineapple on, and I think that's called chicken tikka masala," said Naruto, pointing to each of the dishes. Hinata had been fortunate enough to have had some of the dishes before, including the dish that Naruto had mutilated the name of. "Do you mean chicken tikka masala?" she asked him. "Yeah, that's it," said Naruto, smiling. He figured Hinata may have had some of them before. As for him, other than on missions, where he'd had whatever Kakashi could find or catch and cook, or soldier pills, the only time he'd eaten something that wasn't ramen was when he'd taken Hinata out on their first date about a week ago. They sat at each end of the table, and Naruto noticed that along with a number of sets of disposable chopsticks there was so plastic things that he had never seen before. He picked one up and looked at it carefully. To him it looked like a flat stick that widened at one end and then split into 4 branches that ran straight and parallel to each other. Hinata noticed his dilemma. "It's called a fork, you use it in combination with this, which is a knife," she said, holding up a knife for him to see. "Some of the food you've ordered can't be eaten with chopsticks. The fish can't, so you hold it in place with the fork and then see it with the knife. The pizza can be eaten with them, but as far as I know most people find it easier to just pick up a s of it and eat it by hand," she explained. Naruto seemed to understand what she meant. "Oh. Okay then, well let's eat," he said, putting the knife down and picking up a pair of chopsticks. He decided it would be best if he started with the duck in plum sauce and the chicken things, since he could use chopsticks for them. 2 hours later, a knock came at the door, so Naruto got up and went to answer it to find Jiraiya on the other side. "You two better get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be a big day and you're going to need all the energy you can get for it. Orochimaru always was the strongest of us, and I have a feeling that even in this weakened state he's still going to be, though, particularly to begin with, as I'm not going to be at full strength and soon it is going to have to take quite a beating before she can really go for them," he said. "Alright Ero Sennin, we're just going to put the stuff from our dinner away and then we'll sort ourselves out and get some sleep. See ya," said Naruto as Hinata started putting the cartons inside one another. "Okay, sleep well," replied Jiraiya. Naruto then closed the door and he walked away. He wasn't happy with Naruto calling him that, but he knew it wasn't the time to get angry. He also found it quite strange that they were actually in the room. He had expected to have to go and find them, as they'd be in the woods practicing still. Naruto walked back over to the table and helped Hinata clean up. It wasn't that messy, so it only took them a couple of minutes. He decided he'd let Hinata sort herself out first and then he'd sort himself out. "I'll finish this off, Hinata. You going and get ready for bed," he said, picking up the paper plates that had come with the food. Hinata then gathered some things together and went into the bathroom to get ready for bed. After Naruto had finished putting the leftovers in the bin, he collected what he needed and placed them on the end of his bed. He then lay down on his bed and waited for Hinata to finish in the bathroom. Whilst he was lying there, he started thinking about the relationship. The more he thought about it, the more it seemed to him that even if Sakura had agreed to go out with him, the relationship wouldn't last more than a month at best, but he'd only been with Hinata a week and already he couldn't imagine his life without her. He guessed that must have been what it felt like to be in love. After all, he'd never really known that emotion, not even from a parental bond. All he'd ever known was hate, pain and loneliness. As he thought back on his childhood, even he was amazed he'd stayed in the village. But his resolve was solid. He was going to be Hokage one day and they would have to respect him then. Not that it mattered that much anymore. The way he saw it, all of the rookie 9, Tenten, Neji and Lee would all be at least Jonin, if not Anbu by that time. And God only help someone who got on the wrong end of that lot. Especially Hinata. If what he thought was right, and he was pretty sure it was, if someone tried to get him and she could stop it, God help them, because no one else would be able to. Then the bathroom door opened and Hinata stepped out, so Naruto picked up his things and walked towards the bathroom door. As he passed Hinata, he stopped, put his hand under her chin and tilting his head down, lightly tilted hers up and kissed her. Hinata blushed hard but returned the kiss, then he released her lips. I'll be out soon, you just get to sleep, okay? Shinju, the pet name he'd chosen for his pearl in the sand, as he said. Of course, on hearing his pet name and reasoning, Hinata instantly fainted. He said to her, looking into her eyes, to him they were absolutely beautiful. He could just stare into those eyes for days and completely lose himself. Oh okay Naruto, she said with her face the shade of a tomato. She couldn't find a word to sweet him. There wasn't the word made to express how she felt about him. She then walked over and put her clothes in her bag. They'd sorted out to have a company collect what Naruto had bought for them the next morning at 6:30 a.m. so they wouldn't have to carry it back as it would likely get in the way in a fight. Naruto said he'd speak to the third when they got back and ask him to teach him how to put things into a scroll for easy carrying, but for the moment Hinata sat on her bed and let her mind drift. There was so much that Naruto had already done for her and she felt as though all she did was get in his way. Which she never actually did, fainted whenever he was nice or kind to her or just cheered him on from the sidelines. She knew she wasn't the strongest, the smartest or the most skilled, but she knew that Naruto had chosen her as much as she had chosen him, and something told her that he wasn't going to let her go without good reason. Her father had even accepted him, which meant we was a suitable candidate for a husband in the long run. She decided not to think on it and also decided what she would do when he came out of the bathroom. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.